Hello, it's Dr. Kortni Alston of the Kourting Happiness podcast. Have you checked out our happiness library? It's a carefully curated library with books that I highly recommend that are a must for your happiness library. Go to drkortnialston.com/happiness library. That's drkortnialston.com/happiness library. The authors you will hear on the podcast can also be found in our happiness library. You can also purchase their books on our site. On top of that, your purchase also helps this podcast and the mission of Kourting Happiness. Let's spread happiness and the word. Check out books on the Kourting Happiness library. It will not only change your life, but it can also help you with your next chapter too. Let's get back to the podcast. Welcome to the Kourting Happiness podcast. This is a space where self-care becomes part of your day. A space where you learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness. And my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The Kourting and Kourting Happiness is about a true courtship. I like to say commitment with happiness. The K in Kourting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 86. I'm Dr. Kortni Alston. I am so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for listening. So let's talk this week about quiet quitting. And then we're going to talk about how quitting, we'll ask the question, that is, if quitting can make you happy or happier, right? So if you're like me, you're probably wondering, what is quiet quitting? It isn't quitting with a lower voice. And I say all that jokingly because I stumbled on quiet quitting, checking out different videos on YouTube, searching for my next topic to talk about. And there it was. I found this video that talks about, actually, I found several videos that talk about quiet quitting. So quiet quitting is really a dynamic of the Great Resignation. And so what I could gather from the information that I was able to see online and to hear, instead of physically leaving a job, quiet quitting is when a person mentally checks out of work. With my understanding of, again, my research online, the person does enough not to get fired, or they're doing the very minimum, or at least they're trying to take care of their workflow, but not adding on any more extra, if you know what I mean, right? And these are the things I kind of gathered as I was looking around after watching a video or two on YouTube talking about quiet quitting. So the happiness scholar in me says, but what does it mean to one's happiness? And that's when I found an article that we're going to talk about today. Now, it's an insightful article. It's not about quiet quitting, but it talks about quitting. And I think it's an important topic to share because quiet quitting really kind of inspired this, because it talks about another dynamic as it relates to the Great Resignation, right? As it relates to the result of the pandemic, as it relates to individuals really beginning to reevaluate their work. So I thought this is a great opportunity to look at quitting. So I found an insightful article, and the headline is People Are Quitting Their Jobs in Record Numbers. Here's why it might not make you any happier. And it's published by CNBC and written by Jay Chacone. And you can find the entire article by going to drkortnialston.com/podcast/episode 86. That's drkortnialston.com/episode 86. So there's two experts that I greatly admire that are in the article that share their expertise. And I want to just kind of talk about the dynamics of the article, go into what they've shared, and also some things for you to think about as relates to the article itself. So the lead in this article was, actually talks about data that was published. I think it's important to reference when the article was published, I should say, it's because it reflects data in terms of that period. So this article was published June 25th, 2021. And so it gives data of nearly 4 million quit their jobs. And these are 4 million Americans nearly quit their jobs in April of that year, right? So reasons for quitting, they mentioned, can vary from better pay, shift from the pandemic, right, to how maybe individuals begin to see work, especially as it relates to work from home life, burnout, dissatisfaction when it comes down to work. So the greater question is, can quitting your job make you feel happier? And so I love that they talked to Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky. And Dr. Sonia is an incredible happiness scholar. Matter of fact, when I first entered into positive psychology and I was advised by my dissertation member and mentor at University of Florida, and he teaches positive psychology at University of Florida's University of Florida's psychology department. I so often share my other department where I actually got my degree, which is the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communication. But he comes out of the psychology department. He's the one that really guided me through positive psychology. And this scholar, Dr. Sonia, she is actually one of the first books he recommended that I read. And so I really greatly admire her. And after that, I was, checking out another book that she's written and reading all of these scholarly articles that she's written, and of course, citing her in my own work. So she says that quitting your job might make you happy at first, but that feeling may not last long. And let me reference, she is the author of, two of the books that are in my happiness library, which happens to be The How to Happiness and Myths of Happiness. And you can actually order those books on the podcast page to support this podcast. So the episode page, I should say, you can actually order her books on the episode page to help support this podcast. And that's at drkortnialston.com/podcast/episode 86. So what I love so much is what she shares in regards to really having us think a little bit more deeper in regards to the dynamics of quitting. She goes, when making changes, right? We can focus on, immediate change and how it will make us feel. But that might not always happen a month later. So she also mentions it may be only a day, a week, or maybe in a month before you adapt back to new problems that bubble up. And of course, she talks about hedonic adaptation. And people, as she mentions, have a general tendency to return to a set of level of happiness, to the set level of happiness, despite life's ups and downs. And so here I want to quote her. And she says, when we think of, oh, the day I quit is going to be so amazing. I don't have to deal with that boss anymore or that work anymore. It's amazing. She says, hedonic adaptation leads us to get used to the positive change, and our expectations become a bit higher. So quitting a job you don't like can contribute to overall happiness because, as she mentions, the goal and the pursuit in itself is associated with happiness. But she also adds, quote, but they shouldn't just put all of their hopes in that one basket, end quote. So what should you do? Right? Then what is the next best thing? Right? Well, it's about asking questions and beginning to interview you. So Amy McKee is another amazing scholar, and it's Dr. Annie McKee, excuse me, and she's the author of How to Be Happy at Work. And it's interesting because here I am in the Kourting Happiness studio, and I'm looking at her book as we speak. Beautiful yellow book in regards to very much an incredible read concerning how to be happy at work. And again, you can purchase her book also by visiting the episode page of this podcast at drkortnialston.com/podcast/episode 86. So she adds that, quote, think long and hard about what it is about their current job that is making them unhappy and get really clear about that. And McKee also mentions this. She mentions the importance of really only a few things that make people, that can make people, hate a job. It can be either dealing with certain levels of leadership, maybe your culture or commute. But what I really also value is that she shares it's important to get clear about what your issues are so you don't make the same mistake again. She also shares this, quote, you also need to know what you want and what you'd like to find in this new chapter of your life, end quote. That in itself is powerful, right? Because quitting one job and then feeling that, wow, yes, I finally quit. Oh, I'm out of there, right? Well, what I love so much about what these two incredible scholars are sharing really is the value of thinking about what you don't like about that job and really processing it so you're not walking into the same thing, but a different address. Have you ever been there before? Right? I used to hear that about relationships. I remember hearing people say that same guy, different name kind of thing, right? But when you think about it, if you don't spend enough time thinking about what don't I like about this? Or what are the reasons why I feel this way, right? Because it can be so enlightening to find out what it is so you can make different choices that are going to serve you for your next chapter, right? This new wonderful opportunity. So she also mentions it's really not a question of can you be happy when you quit your job. She mentions how, yeah, you definitely can. Rather, it's more of a question of what are you leaving? So what are you leaving? What do you no longer want in your work life? And more importantly, what do you want? What do you want? She also suggests this. This is Dr. McKee, and she wants you to think about three things. We've talked about this before on the podcast, so I love to hear it again. And her number one happens to be find your why. She says you need to really first figure out what fulfills you, and it really gives you purpose in your work. What's meaningful to you? I always add, I always share with individuals, right? What is that work that fulfills you? Or what are certain things on the job? Maybe it's not necessarily that position. Maybe there's certain things that you really value doing within your work. And then you're looking for other things that either you may want to continue to build skills on. Maybe it's because you want to be able to grow in another fashion. So, think about what is your why? And I think that's so important in anything in life, is always thinking about what's your why, right? What's your purpose here? I always would share with members of my team when I was working in management, and I often would talk to members about legacy in regards to what do you hope to achieve? What do you hope to achieve? And it's interesting because Stephen Covey, right? Author Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Effective, Successful People. I feel like I just really butchered his title there, but 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that's it. And one of the things that I really value so much about Covey is he talks about thinking with the end in mind. And so to me, every time I go into a work dynamic and I'm thinking about legacy, what do I hope to achieve here? How am I going to be of service? What is my legacy? And that for me speaks as relates to purpose. Number 2, she says, think long term. I like that. Think long term. She says, when you're looking for a new job, she advises the people that she coaches to think more long term and visualize the kind of lifestyle that you ultimately want. Wow, that is powerful, because it's not simply, yay, I'm out of this job, right? Because it's thinking about it long term. It almost makes me think of like, look, I love my microwave. I love it. I love my microwave. I mean, once I open the door and I put whatever in there, like my edamame, which I have several times a week, guys, because I just love edamame. Or I used to actually pop a lot of popcorn, but I think edamame has now come into this whole dynamic, replaces popcorn for me, right? Ever since I made this transition to change my lifestyle to vegan. But when I go and I'm at the microwave and I put something in, I'm going to get it pretty fast, right? I'm going to get it pretty fast. And so it's not thinking about that short-term gratification. It's thinking in terms of the long run. What is the ultimate lifestyle for you as it relates to your work? Think about that. Process it. And I love the visualization of it, because it allows you to feel in the presence of it too. When you begin to visualize it, you see it, you feel it, and you really sit with it. So here's the last one, number 3. She says, think about your future coworkers. Think about your future coworkers. She goes, it's important to think about the kind of people you want to work with and search for companies and industries that have those kind of individuals. She also says that ask yourself these things. Are they creative? Do they share your values or interest? And she mentions people you surround yourself with at work matter. So who are these individuals? I like that she mentioned, are they creative? Oh, I love that she talks about shared values. Do they share your values in regards to innovating in the workplace? Or maybe it's values as it relates to giving back. Maybe they are socially responsible company, right? and believe in corporate responsibility and really being able to serve the world. Maybe they're great global citizens, right? Maybe they're an organization that values work life and they have a great employee wellness program. Maybe they value compassion at work. Maybe they've really been outspoken as it relates to workplace well-being. And they think about really the value of their employees and making sure that their employees take care of themselves as well as their families. And it's incorporated within their workplace. Whatever that looks like to you, I love the fact that she is really reminding, or maybe for some of us, it may be hearing this for the first time, the value of really understanding what your needs are and honoring your needs. And I love how she shared that people you surround yourself with at work matters, right? It really matters, especially if you're dealing with psychological safety. Maybe you are at a workplace and you just don't feel, psychologically, you just do not feel safe there, right? So think about what this new chapter looks like. So if you're ready to quit your job, these questions really give you great insight from leading happiness scholars around the world. It allows you to think long-term about your journey at work, really the meaningfulness in regards to your work, and finding a workplace that speaks to your core values and beliefs. And what I love so much about it, because we often think about job interviews, but you kind of need to do an interview with yourself. Do some thinking and processing with yourself. Meditate on that, right? Really sit with it and think about what this new chapter looks like. Or maybe it's, hey, Dr. Kortni, I actually like my company. I'm not trying to quit the company. I just don't really care for what I'm doing within the company structure. Well, then start to think about what that looks like and think about how you're going to reposition yourself. The people that you're surrounding with that you're serving and that can serve you, that may be able to also help you as it relates to this position. So maybe it may not necessarily mean quitting the company, right? Maybe for someone out there who's listening, you might be saying, well, I actually like where I work. I just not liking my position or the position that I currently have. And for some of you, you may be thinking, well, you know what? I want out. Dr. Kortni, I've tried and it's just not a good fit. Well, this information in regards to this article gives you great insight to really think about and to process. So, because really at the end of the day, we don't want to leave one job, right? Then go into another that seems to be the same old thing. Just like I said earlier, right? Going into the next relationship, same guy or same girl, but different name, right? So you don't want this. It's in terms of the job dynamic, it's not the same thing. You're looking for something different, and maybe it's about feeling seen, supported, or even safe. So if you're ready to quit, I say spend some time this week and write all this in your well-being journal and really start visualizing what this new opportunity looks like and begin to become clearer on the type of workplace you deserve. And if you don't have a well-being journal, don't worry. We have you covered. You can check out our newly revised well-being journal that creates the perfect place to visualize your happiness journey. You can download it for free by visiting, again, the episode page of this podcast at drkortnialston.com/podcast/ episode 86. Again, that's drkortnialston.com/podcast/ episode 86. And again, this is a free download, and it's our well-being journal that is newly revised and really ready to help serve you as it relates to your happiness journey. Always remember this. Your well-being is your most important job. I'm always cheering you on. Thank you so much for listening. Let's continue this conversation online. Email us at podcast@drkortnialston.com. That's podcast@drkortnialston.com. Join us on Instagram at Kourting Happiness. Don't forget, that's courting with a K. Also, I hope you join our private Facebook community. You can find us at Kourting Happiness Podcast Community. Our private Facebook group is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Now, are you ready to spread happiness? We hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.